Hey, how are you? This is Ted, and you're listening to Practical Wellness Radio. Coach Cody will be joining me shortly, where we will dive into our conversation with Ben Ketelsen, former Division I collegiate gymnast at the University of Iowa, where he would also go on to become a member of the coaching staff for the Iowa men's gymnastics team. These days, Ben is coaching CrossFit at CrossFit Kilo 2 in Iowa City, and Ben has a pretty unique perspective on competition. He's been involved in high-level competitions from a very young age, first in gymnastics and eventually in competitive CrossFit. So we chat about that and a lot of other things. Hope you enjoy it. For today's warm-up segment, we wanted to take a step back and break a few things down. We're talking a lot of CrossFit in this episode, and other episodes for that matter, we chat about it also. And if you're aware of CrossFit, you know that the CrossFit Open is going on right now, and Cody and I both have a lot of experience in CrossFit, and I understand that many listening to this probably know us through that. But when we're talking about the CrossFit Open and competing in it, it's important to understand who you are competing with. And, you know, I'm not going to give you the, hey, your competition is the person in the mirror quote, but what I will say is remember the whys, and that's not the letter Y, that's W-H-Y. So why did you start working out? Why do you continue to work out? And why is it important that you remain healthy? So in this day and age where you can open up Instagram or any social media account and see someone else's highlight reel of them just killing it, I'm going to tell you that you just need to ignore that. You need to ignore that stuff. Ignore what everyone else is doing and achieving. Your life is about breaking your own limits, outgrowing yourself, and trying your best to live life to the best version of yourself. You're not in competition with anyone else. Outdo your past, not other people. Hey, real quickly, before we dive into this interview, we want to let you know that the Practical Wellness Run Club will be starting here soon. We're looking to get it started in April, as soon as the weather gets nice. If you're living in Iowa like Cody and I, you're ready to get outside and escape indoors. And even if you're not a huge runner, maybe like me, it's still nice to just get outside and be a part of a group. We do offer weekly interval-based workouts that can be done on your own remotely. Or there's a group that kind of gets together in Iowa City and they meet once a week. The workouts are delivered in a private Facebook group. But if you have any more questions or you want access to that Facebook group, please feel free to shoot us an email. Email is info@practicalwellnesscoach.com. Now let's get to the show. All right, here we go. We're going to get things started with our guy, Ben Ketelsen. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. The OGs, the guys that started me out in CrossFit right here.
I know you started with us in like 2012.
I think it was a little
right?
later than that. I was trying to figure that out the other day. I think it was 2014.
Oh,
I
really?
think that January, because I think that was the first year I did the Open. And so that's kind of when I started finding a CrossFit place and started with ProFit out there.
Yeah.
That's
I remember
interesting.
watching you snatch for the first time. I was like, was this your first time? You just snatched like 200 pounds.
That is funny. That's how I was going to kind of,
memory.
yeah, that's what I was going to bring up too. I've brought you up actually, Ben, to people like just in passing, or you've come up in conversation. One, because we're going to talk about it a lot today, but like the gymnastic stuff, but two, you are the person in my mind that stands out. Like I remember your first day. I think you and your girlfriend at the time, maybe, or your wife now, you guys were coming at 6:15 in the morning, I want to say.
Yep.
And we were doing snatches that day at the gym. Cody and I were coaching at the gym together, and we were like, oh, okay, we're gonna get warmed up, whatever. Barbell, you grab a bar, and we're starting to go through some snatch warm ups. And I came over and I was like, introduced myself because I don't think I, had met you before, and I didn't know it was your first day, and we're talking about the snatch, and I was like, it looks good, by the way. You must have been working on this, or you must have, I don't know. Like I didn't really know. And you're like, no, this is I've never done this before. And I was like, shut up.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
you know how many people would be so mad, like, to know that this was the first time you've ever snatched, and it was looking pretty good. But yeah, so for everyone that might not know, we just kind of briefly touched on it. Ben got to know Cody and I, as Cody and I were coaches at a gym, and we were doing CrossFit. We were all doing CrossFit together. Ben was instantly, like, competitively just kind of a dude, and it was really fun to watch you grow. And you have like a fitness background a little bit, and I say a little bit, I meant to say a lot of bit, but
I was gonna say
yeah.
that's like just a little, right.
But so
Just a little unique.
yeah. So let's start it off here, Ben. Like we kind of said, you were, to me, the gymnastics dude. You were gymnastic Ben, but tell us how you kind of originally got into gymnastics.
So it was a little bit later than a lot of people in gymnastics. I started when I was about 8, I believe, which I know it sounds really young, but gymnastics, most kids kind of get into it once they can kind of walk and start figuring things out. There was a lot of kids that I knew that got into it when they were like 3, 4 years old. Little kiddie classes with their parents, figuring out how to move, figuring out how to hang from bars and rings and things like that. But yeah, I started when I was a little bit later, 8, 9 years old. I had a buddy that went to a private club where I grew up, and I was doing like flips and stuff over the couch, and my mom was like, "We should probably channel this somehow." And so they were like, "Yeah, let's enroll him with this club and kind of see where it goes." I think I did a couple of classes in like their like pre-team kind of thing, where they kind of see where you're at, and ended up starting to compete within that first year, and it just kind of took off from there. I mean, I was a little bit of a unique gymnast. Can't really see it from sitting here, but I'm 6 foot, so most of the time gymnasts aren't that tall. And I
How
was
tall are they usually?
like mid fives, like 5'6", 5'5".
Yeah, you're like a
I mean,
giant
you
in
could,
the gymnastics world then.
yeah. I mean, you could find a broad spectrum of different athletes, but for the most part, the taller you get, the longer the wingspan, bigger the levers and different things like that. So it gets challenging. So I mean, growing up, I was fortunate enough to have a coach that was taller, and see he kind of knew some of those pains, those difficulties, and pushed me to stick with it through some of the hard times. I mean, growing up, I had a bunch of growing pains, and times where little kids would or littler athletes, I guess, would excel and kind of start seeing some of those gains, and I was growing, and I was like, I'm weak. I can't figure out how to move my body, and it's just weird. And
was there ever a time where you thought your height actually helped you in gymnastics, or?
Yeah, and so that towards when I started to kind of plateau a little bit, I started figuring out just unique ways to use my height and as a advantage. I mean, I just had to think of things a little bit different. And again, I attribute that a lot to my coach. My gymnastics just looked a lot different than some of the other guys. I just had to adapt, and that's kind of the big thing that I learned from him and from the gym that I was going to is, not everyone has to exactly look the same, and you're still able to compete at a high level.
Speaking of competition, and you mentioned you started to compete pretty early. What does a competition look like kind of around that? So would you say you started to compete like when you're 8 or 9?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
So men have 6 events. We've got floor, pommel horse, rings, vault, parallel bars, and high bar. Mm-hmm. And so essentially a meet looks like, I mean, when you're young, things are compulsory. So every kid kind of has the same routine. It's like a USA Gymnastics kind of develops a routine that is structured for progress, essentially.
It's
so
like
every
kind of a
kid
standard.
Yep. Every kid basically starts with that standard. There's a couple of things that you can kind of do to get bonus or like kind of set yourself apart, but essentially everything in there is standard. Um, you go in the gym, you warm it up, and then when the meet starts, you salute and go. Normally the meets are pretty long. For the most part, there's like 10 to 12-ish kids in your
Mhm.
rotation most of the time, and so you just kind of go through, do your thing, get a score, and go on from there.
So even that young of an age, like you're still on the ring, just still on the pommel horse.
Yeah. Um, Pommel Horse has a separate event as well when you're just starting out. It's called the Mushroom. So
Sure.
it doesn't have any kind of pommels on it. It's a little bit more developmental. You just learn essentially how to swing around. You just do basic circles without kind of any of the obstructions of the pommel horse.
Hmm.
Um, but every other event is pretty much the same.
And you mean by like basic circles? And forgive me, I don't know like gymnastic terminology, but that's like where you're
Yeah.
like in support position and then you're rotating your legs
Yep.
around the object.
Yep.
Awesome, A+ for me.
Yep.
Was there one event that you think you initially and maybe naturally gravitated towards that you succeeded and excelled in?
I always liked floor and vault. I had good air awareness. I like to jump on trampoline a lot, and
Yeah.
the the coach normally got a little upset with me because I was always jumping on trampoline when we were doing rings because I did not like rings. Rings wasn't my thing, and I'd rather be jumping on the trampoline. So he's like, eventually we kind of gave way to that and kind of started developing some of those other strengths. But yeah, I always liked to um, compete floor and vault.
Hmm.
High bar was another one that was pretty exciting. A lot of the bigger release, the spins, the turns, those are fun.
Hmm. And high bar is just the one bar, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's you guys men don't have the high low bar with the uneven bars, is that right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
And that's where we differ from the ladies. They have the uneven bars. We just have the sole high bar, and then we have parallel bars, and so those are the two rails that are right next to each other.
Sure. And you eventually, so you competed and we haven't really said this yet, but you became a collegiate gymnast.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, I stuck through some of the hard times and got through the growing pains, and yeah, towards the end of my high school career, kind of made it up through the ranks and got recruited to a couple of different schools, and that's where I ended up here in Iowa.
Where'd you go to high school, Ben?
I went to Fisher Catholic. It was in Lancaster, Ohio.
Okay. And I think I maybe knew that. I just couldn't remember. It's funny you talk about, and you use the term, air awareness, and it was, that there's a million different ways we can take this conversation, but kind of bringing it back to when we first met, that was exactly like, you were the dude, you were the guy that like I could tell you something once as a coach, and you're like, cool, okay. I could like see the wheels turning in your head, and you're kind of like understanding it, you're comprehending it, and then you just freaking did it. And I was like, yeah, I'm the best coach ever. No, it was, but so that was
That's what it
always
felt
interesting.
like, though. It was always
Yeah,
fun to coach because, like, I feel really good about myself.
yeah. But so was there gymnastics? Is that a high school sport in Ohio, or were you on a club, or how did that work?
No, we didn't have it as part of our high school. It was a private club there
Gotcha.
in Lancaster where I grew up. There's not a whole lot of high school gymnastics left. I
Hmm.
believe Illinois has some. Um, there's some programs down in Texas, maybe a little bit in California, but it's pretty sporadic.
Yeah, I imagine gymnastics in general seems to be, for lack of a better term, maybe struggling a little bit right now. I think there's, just with everything going on in the world right now, I think there's been some cuts collegiately, probably clubs,
Yeah.
everything. Tell us a little bit about that. How has that been to kind of wrap your head around as somebody who's passionate probably about that sport, and do you have
Yeah.
anything to kind of speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, everyone that kind of brings up gymnastics around me, they're like, "Oh, I love gymnastics." It's really exciting to watch. It's awesome every time the Olympics comes around. It's the number one thing I look at. Um, but unfortunately, collegiately and kind of it's just not one of those revenue generating sports. I mean, it's an Olympic sport. So everything besides those big money makers are really feeling it right now. Um, Unfortunately, Iowa is one of those programs. Um, Back in August, they were told that this is going to be their last season. So yeah, it's a bummer, especially for the athletes. We had a really strong recruiting class coming in this year. Um, we were looking forward to what they were going to be able to do for us. I mean, they still had their season. They're actually doing really well. So far, they're undefeated. They really took the news and decided, we're gonna give it our best run. I mean, it's the last time we're gonna be able to compete with a Hawkeye on our chest. So, um, yeah, they've been putting their nose down and doing the work and just trying to, finish things out on a really high note. And I mean, the program in general has just been on a upswing these last couple of years, and so it's a shame to see that, when they fall on hard times, that's kind of one thing that fell off.
Yeah, it's
How
just
long did you coach for the men's team? So you ended up coaching for where you were a collegiate athlete, right?
Yeah, so I competed my 4 years for Iowa. Towards my senior year, we had a head coach switch over. Um, so I had the same head coach for three. My senior year, we had a switch over. Him and his wife came in, and I started coaching some gymnastics with them. And then I did 1 year of volunteer assistant coaching, and then the year after that, I was hired on as staff. So I think I officially coached for 8 years as an assistant for Iowa.
Yeah,
That's a
super
long time.
cool. That's super cool. I think like this is kind of a weird question to ask sometimes because I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're being selfish. But so what did you receive more joy from? Was it coaching gymnastics or participating and being part of the team as a teammate in gymnastics? And like I said, I feel like sometimes people feel like they're being selfish if they say participating as a team because like as coaches we're supposed to like be doing this for all the right reasons, but they both kind of have their pros and cons. But what gave you a little bit more,
Mm.
a little bit more?
That is tough. I actually really liked and enjoyed the coaching aspect. Obviously, I did like competing,
Mhm.
and there were times that I really enjoyed during my collegiate time. But I coached a lot of really good athletes, and we were able to take our team to the NCAA finals and get some accolades that I wanted to do as an athlete, but was able to do as a coach. And so there was goals that I was able to reach through my athletes and through those guys that I was working with, which was really cool.
Yeah, and it's like, man, you're a Division 1 collegiate athlete. Like that's a pretty cool thing to say and be proud of. And so like that's just kind of where I was going with, leading up to that question. I mean, you should be freaking proud. Like there's not many people in the world that can say they've done that, let alone at a good university and I think a sport that's really, really challenging and really competitive. So
Hmm.
so that's cool.
Now, I have a question. Since you've coached, and I think you had maybe mentioned this, you started coaching more youth, like as a volunteer. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
So I started coaching essentially a club, and those are like middle school, high school kids.
okay. What's the difference between coaching, and we can even like think about the whole kind of spectrum of age groups here, right? So thinking about like a young 8-year-old Ben or even younger, right? Since you started a little later, what's the difference between like training each age group? What's the focus? What's the dynamic? Obviously, it probably gets a little bit more serious, or maybe it stays serious the whole time. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you start them young, I mean, a lot of it is the building blocks. It's having that kind of that vision of this is where you're gonna try to go. How do we build that backwards? Like where do we start? What do we really need to focus in as we have the time to develop, so that you have the fundamentals to once you're strong, once your body is able to do some of those things, you have the foundation to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of the times that can be lost a little bit, um, with especially with gymnastics when you're seeing like a lot of the big skills. Coaches tend to push for those, and you kind of lose some of the fundamentals. But when you're starting with the youth, I mean, getting a really firm base is huge, and that's kind of where it differs. Collegiately, that 4 year window closes fast, and
Yeah.
so you do as much fundamentals as possible, but you're mainly pushing some difficulty. You're trying to keep them healthy, just developing strength. Something that you can build on throughout that 4 years. I mean, even looking at a freshman versus a senior, that window of time, it differs a little bit.
I remember reading, and this is a while ago, and I don't remember where I read it from, which is kind of very classic, but is it true that a lot of the higher level skills, and this is after like the basics, are those learned even like before, say, puberty? And then you try to maintain those as you're growing and getting longer and heavier? Is that true?
Somewhat. It kind of depends on the skill.
Okay.
I mean, that's where men tend to kind of peak a little bit more towards college because it
Sure.
just takes us longer to mature,
hmm
both mentally and physically, for that matter.
hmm
And so a lot of those high level skills, you just need the muscle and the capacity to do them. And so a lot of the times you'll see guys that are they'll get some high level skills a little bit younger, but a lot of those that tend to come a little bit later in their career.
Sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, recently on the podcast, we had an Olympic weightlifting coach, and we didn't really talk about this a lot on the podcast, but something that, I've learned, and I've learned from other coaches when it's specific towards like Olympic weightlifting, is there are kind of three things that we're looking for in a good, again, using the analogy of like Olympic weightlifting, right? And it's kind of like technique and power. We kind of combine those into two because I think with good technique, good power comes. With good power, you usually have good technique. The second would be like a mobility or like positional strength, being able to squat to full depth, perform overhead squats, stuff like that. And then the third is kind of like just being strong, like just the raw strength, right? And so,
Sure.
in the barbell lifts, the easiest one almost to coach and to train is the strength, right? Here's a barbell, start
Yep.
squatting, you're going to get stronger, right? Can you give us an example when coaching gymnastics, if you were to give like maybe 3 pillars or 2 or whatever it is,
Sure.
or maybe just the most important thing that it comes to like you're looking to build like the perfect men's gymnastic athlete, like what are some things you're looking for?
Yeah, so I mean they're actually fairly similar. I mean the first thing that you do is range of motion, that mobility, which again kind of comes when you're young. We spend anywhere from a half an hour to an hour working on flexibility, being able to put your body in the positions that are necessary for skills that are pretty taxing in different range of motions. I mean, we do a lot of straddles, a lot of splitting actions. You got to be able to lift and hold those positions. So if you can't really get your body to them, then it's not going to happen at a dynamic uh, fashion. And then the other one is shaping. We do a lot of shaping, hollows, arches, handstands. It's kind of the same thing. We spend half an hour to an hour just doing those basic things. It's somewhat almost monotonous. I mean, every day you go in, you're doing the same thing just to build that muscle memory, so that when you're doing, you know, a double back with multiple twists, that your brain doesn't have to think about it. It's just, you've been doing it for years on years. To point your toes, to squeeze your quads to straighten your legs. The handstand position to lock it into.
Can you
Something
still do
that,
the splits? Ted, this is important. I need to
yeah,
know.
this is important. Can you do the splits?
Uh, Not as good as I used to. No.
Yeah. What, I had such a good question, and now Cody wanted to talk about doing the splits, and I can't remember what it was. I'm sure it was a great question.
I doubt it was as good as that one.
Yeah. Hey, something I was going to ask. Yeah, I remember. So, Cody and I have coached a lot of CrossFit. We coached a lot of fitness athletes. We've done some other coaching too, and I think there's a lot of sports where there's a number of different ways to kind of perform whatever task we're trying to accomplish, right? Again, using maybe Olympic weightlifting as the example, like you might see somebody power snatch, squat snatch. You might see somebody squat clean, split clean, push jerk, split jerk, right? Whatever they kind of want to utilize. From somebody who doesn't know a lot about gymnastics, when I watch gymnastics, maybe in the Olympics, to me, you can tell that they're all really, really good. And you can tell that they all maybe have their own little like style, delivery, whatever. But again, I don't want to offend you. Like it all kind of looks the same to me in a way. Like,
Sure.
yeah.
No.
What is that kind of the point, or is that just me not knowing enough about the sport?
No, and I mean that is somewhat by design. It is they're judged, and so I mean there's the skill criteria, and if you diverge from that, you bend your knees, you don't point your toes enough, it's not straight enough, you get a deduction. So it's yeah, I mean they used to have compulsories at that Olympic level as well as, and everybody would be essentially doing the same skills.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the only way that you would be able to, you know, stand out from the crowd was to add a little bit of flair here and there with presentation. But other than that, yeah, you essentially wanted to do it how the book was written.
Yeah, that's interesting because, again, bringing it back to the barbell sports, like if we're talking powerlifting and you're a deadlifter, there's not style points. It's
Right.
Can you pick the bar up?
Yep.
And we've all seen some ugly ass deadlifts before, but yeah, no, so that's interesting. What you touched briefly on, I'm really curious. What does maybe a bullet point list of like what a good gymnastics practice looks like a collegiate session? You guys show up as a team. What, how long were the practices? What kind of stuff did you guys do?
Yeah. So, don't touch the earpods.
That's fine.
We practiced anywhere for 3 to 4 hours, and that was kind of a pretty general since we were little, high schools all the way up through collegiate. You get in, you warm up. Like I said, you go through a lot of the stretching, a lot of dynamic movements, getting your body primed to go through the rigors of practice. Get your blood flowing, the body warm. You essentially went from top down as far as getting your body warmed up, the shoulders, your midsection, hips, ankles, everything that was just kind of get used throughout the day. And then we do some shaping. We do handstands. In college, we were doing anywhere from like 5 to 7 minutes worth of various handstands just in our warm up. A minute freestand handstand, followed by hollow shapes, arch shapes, rocking, just getting your nervous system almost primed for the upcoming events. And then we would do a little bit of pre-strength, handstand push-ups, just again to kind of prime the muscles for the events for that day. We did a lot of rope climbs, which is almost like a full body prime, shoulders, midsection, hip flexors. Everybody kind of laughs because in CrossFit we use our legs, but in gymnastics I was taught to absolutely not use my legs. Essentially, do LC rope climbs, just to engage the whole body. That was one of our things that we basically did every day alongside handstands. And then from there, we move on to events. Most of the time we would do, if you're an all-rounder, if you did all the events, you would do 3 events a day. And then specialists, it kind of varied. Sometimes you would do that event, or you would do some accessory work to make that event a little bit better. Most of the time we spent about 45 to 50 minutes on an event. Most of us, we had a routine that we were working towards for season. Depending on the type of the time of year, you would kind of break that down in individual skills, or you'd be working on a set of, 3 to 5 skills in a row, and then building towards a routine as you get closer to season, just to put in more reps and repetitions, and then we'd have a post strength. We would essentially have about anywhere from half an hour to an hour worth of post strength, be that ring strength, or we did some circuit-based strength, um, depending on, again, the time of year.
When you guys, and I remember talking to you about this, and this is such a, a decent amount of time ago. Did you guys, when you were coaching, start to lift weights more in the off season compared to like when you were an athlete?
When I was an athlete, we did not really lift weights. We had a dumbbell rack in the gym, mainly for some shoulder rehab. We would do curls and things like that. There was some ring drills that we would do with dumbbells, but for the most part, we didn't really touch any kind of a barbell. Um, there was a couple times that we worked with a strength and conditioning coach, but our head coach at the time didn't really see too much benefit in it.
Mm-hmm.
So we mainly just stuck in the gym. While I was coaching, we had a great relationship with our strength and conditioning coaches, and so they more and more got into the weight room. And so the guys that are in there now, they've learned how to deadlift. They know how to clean. They've been starting to work towards snatch, overhead press,
Mm-hmm.
those general things that you do with a barbell. They're finally getting some experience with. But yeah, like most of those guys coming in as freshmen, they're like, I have absolutely no
Yeah.
idea what to do with this thing.
Because that's not a traditional thing for, especially probably even youth gymnastics,
Right.
to have that exposure. So that's probably brand new. Did you feel, from your perspective, that was a big game changer, or was it just kind of a, and maybe this is true, right? There is like a percentage of performance increase, 2 or 3%, but that could be a big deal in and of itself, especially at that higher
Right.
level.
To me, once I started CrossFit, in myself, I saw a good amount of gains,
Mm-hmm.
and so figuring out how to maneuver an external load, um, squat, do basic things like that, outside of the realm of gymnastics, opened up a lot of thoughts for me.
Mm-hmm.
And as we started getting our athletes in there, and they started opening their minds to, oh shoot, I don't just have to do a handstand push-up to get my arm stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It opened up different ways to improve. And I think that's fairly general among the gymnastics population, because it's been so it's almost fairly rigid as far as, you do this, you're going to get these skills,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you're going to be successful. And
That's how it's always been.
yeah, and that's how it's been. But now people are seeing, the importance of, maybe getting outside of, the gymnastics room and going to a weightlifting gym, and figuring some of those things out to keep your body healthy, just be better prepared to manage loads.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing, a huge release or a dismount off a high bar, you're up there, and to be able to land strong and in a powerful position without moving. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to figure out how to squat properly and
Yeah.
land in a nice, solid, powerful position. So
it's a lot
yeah,
about injury prevention too, right?
yeah, hmm
Did you see
yeah,
that
I mean,
like objectively or, even subjectively, when you were
yeah,
coaching? Just less
yeah, I mean,
injuries?
yeah, as they really got into it, I mean, they were sore in different places that they've never felt sore before, but once they started getting into it and they buy into that program, um, yeah, they start figuring out, once I get through this, I'm gonna be strong, and I'm gonna be able to, handle myself during competition a
Yeah.
lot better. I'm gonna be able to push through competition season and be stronger in postseason.
Right.
Um,
Longevity aspect in terms of like allocating energy and making it last through the whole season, which is probably a grind, especially in gymnastics.
Yeah, and like I said, it is fairly monotonous. If you're doing the same thing, the same body positions, you're
Mm-hmm.
beating the same thing over and over again throughout the entirety of the season. It's really
Mm-hmm.
nice to kind of escape and get into the weight room where you're seeing new faces, you're working with
Yeah.
new
That
coaches.
mental
They have
aspect.
yeah, they have new perspectives. You're working with other athletes other than the other 17 guys on the team. Um, and so I thought it was huge. I thought it was really a good thing for the program.
You're probably a kind of a unique case study in this, that you started to coach pretty soon after you graduated, after your collegiate career, and you started kind of CrossFit and just doing some general strength training pretty soon after that. in terms of like what I have in my head as a timeline. So you're probably able to do all of those skills still, probably at a very like high level. And then see that really direct transfer of, hey, like my legs are stronger now. How does this transfer? Right. As opposed to being like 10 years out where you lose your edge. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really enjoyed floor and vault, and then all of a sudden my legs started feeling better and stronger and able to do some things. And you always automatically kind of feel some of the gains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think maybe that's a good transition. So you're coaching CrossFit now?
Yeah. Yep. So I'm at Kilo 2 and trying to coach classes and work with individuals whenever I can. My wife is a nurse, and so she's got a kind of a busy, crazy schedule sometimes. And so
shout out to Brandy if she listens to this.
Yeah.
Or if she's listening right now.
I don't know if she can hear me. Okay. She's upstairs. She's wrangling the boys.
That's great. So you guys have 2 kids?
2 boys. Yep.
2 boys. I have 2 girls.
2 boys.
What do you think? What do you think
I'm
of 2 boys
sitting.
versus? What do you think of 2 boys versus 2 girls? Did you guys? Did you ever wish you had a daughter? I mean, it's hard to say like you have 2 boys and you would never trade them for anything in the world, but like I think about that sometimes with my daughters. Like I have these 2 little like princesses, and I like, and it's just like for me, it's just really, really different. I had sisters. I had a brother. I don't know if, for whatever reason, maybe it's a guy thing. We always think about like, oh man, we'll have boys someday and we'll throw the pigskin in the backyard. And now I have 2 girls, and it's like, I think, and this is going to be cheesy, but I think I was meant to be a girl dad, and it works out great. And are your boys like, are they hellraisers?
A little bit. They've got a little bit of me and Brandy in there. I mean, Nolan, our oldest one, he's 3.5 now.
Yeah.
There's times where he's jumping off the walls and trying to do handstands and things like that, and then he'll go into his room and just kind of sit and read a book.
That's pretty cool.
So
so my daughter Holiday, she turned 3 in January, so January 2nd was her birthday, so just a little bit younger, and she like, I don't know, and maybe a lot will change between 3 and 3.5, but like she's just kind of like, she's not going to go sit in her room and read a book because she's just that kid who wants to just jump and play and run around, and she really enjoys playing, and it's so much fun right now. But like getting back to when you're talking about coaching, tell me how you're coaching gymnastics originally, and then you got into coaching CrossFit, and then I think maybe we buried the lead here a little bit too. I think you're a pretty damn competitive CrossFit athlete also. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of your, it's hard to brag, but tell us about some of your accomplishments, being that I know that there's probably a lot of people, I owned a CrossFit gym that may be listening to this, and they're probably curious. What are some of your accomplishments when it comes to CrossFit specifically?
So I started kind of coaching more CrossFit in the last, I don't know, year and a half or so. Just because I love being in the gym. Like I said, it's just really fun to play with the different domains. It's a totally different realm, like I said, from gymnastics, and I love the barbell. I love the challenges of some of those things that growing up I didn't expose myself to. I don't really like running, but got to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a really cool transition kind of into CrossFit, I'm at an extremely competitive gym. Our owner, he was part of the games team, the Kilo team up in Cedar Falls, and then we've got a couple of guys that are regional and game level, and so it's those guys that I'm training with are. We push each other every time we go in the gym, so it's a lot of fun to compete and train alongside them. We'll kind of see where things go this year. Whoop. Sorry.
Lost in your bud.
It,
No, so you said you mentioned you have a couple game level, a couple regional level athletes. I imagine though, every once in a while, there's a nice gymnastic workout that is totally in your wheelhouse. Do you throw down on them pretty good in those?
I try. Yeah, trying to keep my strengths up,
Mhm.
so I can do that every now and then. But yeah, they know that if they can catch me on those, that they're sitting pretty good
Yeah, they probably.
gymnastics wise, so that they come after it pretty good.
So when it comes to both participating as an athlete in CrossFit and in gymnastics, and then let's even say in coaching CrossFit and coaching gymnastics, um, what do you think separates? Like, I mean, you're at the top of the level in gymnastics. You've seen some really cool things. You've been around some great athletes. You're a great athlete yourself. Same thing in CrossFit. You know, you've seen the top 0.0001% fittest people in the world. What is there something that stands out? Like, what's the one thing that you think those people have in common?
It's the little things, like I said, the monotonous, the things that people don't want to do,
Yeah.
the things that aren't quite as glorious, or the big PRs, the sitting in the corner working on your mobility, making sure your body's good, you know, getting on a bike and riding for an hour and just sweating in the corner, things like that, where it's people aren't excited really to watch it, but it's what makes you good. Um, you know, when your mind's kind of telling you, maybe I can skip this, but they end up doing it anyways, and they reap the benefits of it.
I think that's a good point. And you can just totally call me out if this is just a terrible analogy. But when it comes to like gymnastics and let's say CrossFit, I always think of like, you know, let's say you're going to build a house and you want to build the house from the ground up, right? You're going to lay the foundation, build the frames, put the roof on, right? And so that's the CrossFit athlete that wants to kind of learn how to do all of that, start from the bottom, build everything together and end up with this house, right? Where maybe gymnastics is like, I'm going to be really good at roofing. I'm going to put the best roofs on, or whatever that is, right? And I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
just one element. They do kind of come together. You've had the ability to kind of dabble in both, or you know, have actually a lot of success in both. And then but I think that, man, you're absolutely right. It is always the little things. Like
yeah.
the guy that's really good at building the house, he probably is really good at sweeping the floor up when he, before he goes home at the end of the day. And the guy that really is really good at putting the roof on, he's going to make sure every detail, no water runs through the cracks and gets into the roof and makes a mess, and takes a lot of pride in what they do. And I think that's like, I don't know, we talk about that a lot, Cody and I do, when it's just the
Building
little
houses
things.
specifically.
Yeah, building houses. But it is just the little things. And I think that it's not the sexy stuff, right? And you said
Right.
it's I think all those people are pretty mentally tough, very,
Yeah.
accountable, like self-accountable. They don't need somebody else to tell them to get their work done. They're just going to show up and do it, whether the gym is full of people or if it's just them in the
Yeah.
gym.
Where does that come from though? Like, so for you, Ben, like you're very diligent. You've had a lot of success. Like you have had a drive, right? And you've done all those small things. Does that just come from your innate personality? Did you learn that? What do you think? And I don't know if there's a clear answer, but I'm just kind of curious.
Uh, I think it's a little bit of both. It's um, you know, just finding the enjoyment and kind of doing those little things. Um, Enjoying the process of just getting better at things, but also just having the right people around me, like the coach I was talking about earlier. He instilled those things in us a
Mhm.
lot. As we were doing flexibility, as we were doing rehab, if when we were doing post work, just making sure that we knew why we were doing it,
Mhm.
and that why, I guess, is kind of what drives you forward. You
Yeah.
know, to stay healthy, to reach those end goals. You don't. It's kind of funny that you bring up the building the house thing, because my father-in-law is a carpenter, and he always makes us like clean up after everything that we do that
Yeah.
day. Make sure that everything's nice and clean, even if we're going to come back to it the next day.
Hmm.
And
That
it's just those little things. You just clean it up,
yeah,
restart the next day, and get after it.
that's absolutely right. I've worked a little bit of construction and for a couple carpenters in my life too, and that is always like, I think the one thing, like to separate and to decide if somebody like leaves a mess, right?
Yeah.
Like that just tells you all you need to know. And if somebody like cleans things up, even if it's just, and the light's not going to be turned back on until they come the next day and make a mess, like
Right.
it's the little things, and it's the little things for sure. But so what do you think has, let's talk the last like 10 years, right? So excluding family, excluding kids, wife, what are you most proud of in the last 10 years?
Shoot.
Yeah, hit you with the deep one there, Ben.
Yeah, that is deep. It is deep.
That wasn't on the pre-show notes.
I think that probably just amount of progress that I've been able to make. Looking back to where I started, at least in CrossFit, looking at my numbers and things like that, and where I'm able to train at today. You brought up when we started that 200-pound snatch. I bring that up to guys in our gym all the time, because I remember when I put 200 pounds on there, and I was like, I'm gonna lift this up over my head, and I'm gonna try to squat it up. That is like insane to me.
Yeah.
And now I my PR is 280.
Yeah.
And so there's guys in our gym that kind of ask me like, how did you get here? I was like, well, I just started and
Yeah.
stuck to a program. And so I guess that's one of the big things, that the progress made in the gym makes me pretty proud.
Yeah, and I think you should be. And I've been there for a lot of your journey, especially at the beginning, from one gym to another and then to another. And you've not let up, right?
Yeah.
You've been so consistent. You're probably, one of the most consistent people that I know as it relates to kind of the goals that you want to achieve, and like diligently working towards them and just showing up every day. So, and it shows, right? You've reaped those rewards. And that's a rare thing. And that's me saying, like, as someone that coaches general population, right, for a living, that's usually the biggest struggle, is consistency.
Right.
Right. And you're one of the most consistent people I've seen, whether close up or from afar. And I just want to give you a shout out for that.
Shout out.
Thanks.
Shout out to Ben. 280-pound snatch. You dog, you. Man, that's impressive. So let's talk some cool, like, party trick gymnastic stuff. Like I remember too, a few years ago, I've just randomly found something on Instagram, I think, and there's this CrossFit athlete doing this like flip on the bars and toe up and over or something. I don't even remember what it was. And I think I sent it to you, and I want to say like 3 hours later, you sent a video back to me of you doing the same thing, and probably even better than and I was like mind blown. I was like, this is so cool. Check this out, Ben. And you're just like, yeah, here you go. I just did it. I think all this is very different, right? Gymnastics, versus gymnastics and CrossFit. But like, what is something that you want to brag about? Like, what are we talking here? Let's say bar muscle ups. How many bar muscle ups do you think you could do in a row? Oof. Or whatever, wherever you want to take it. That's just an example. What bar muscle ups, ring muscle ups, handstand push ups? What's the cool?
I've never really maxed those out.
Yeah.
I definitely could do 20 plus ring muscle ups in a row. I don't know, bar muscle up wise.
What's easier for you?
I could probably do more bar muscle ups.
Yeah.
You can do those reverse ring muscle ups. I remember those.
I do.
Yeah, like a backup rise.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah, I like walking on my hands. We always have races in the gym. It's who can walk the fastest, and then everybody's always like, you're running, you're not walking on your hands.
Yeah, Ben can probably walk on his hands faster than I can run on my feet. But
I've had this question that I've been wanting to ask, and this is for both of you guys. And you guys both have kids of similar age, from my perspective at least. I know there's probably a big difference from a 3-year-old to a 5-year-old and et cetera. But, have you, or would you have those kids take some type of gymnastics or tumbling?
You go first, Ben. For me, it's absolutely yes. But I just think it's because it's cool. But I don't know enough about it. Go ahead.
Um, Me being a coach, I feel like I can do a lot here at home.
Sure.
I
Like
suppose, yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of an interesting feeling because I would like them to have a more broad experience, I think, versus mine, which was very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I knew was gymnastics. I did like maybe a year of soccer and did t-ball once. And so I'd like them to have more of a broad experience, I guess, of sports.
Yeah.
And I think that I could teach them the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could teach them how to. I mean, they know how to roll, and they're starting to figure out how to get upside down and some things like that. But
Yeah. It's funny. I've kind of like a different answer, but kind of for the exact same reason, because I can't teach my kids any of that stuff.
yeah,
Because I'm not good at any of that stuff. Like, for example, I have another friend who's decently good at gymnastics, and I cannot walk on my hands, and I've tried, and I've probably not committed what I should, the time to it, but I cannot walk on my hands. And my friend was like, because we knew each other through CrossFit, and we were both roughly around the same skill level when it came to CrossFit, and he was like, "What, you can't walk on your hands?" And he looked at me, and I was like, "No, I don't know." I was like, "What did you learn?" He's like, I don't know. Like, he didn't remember learning how to walk on his hands. Like, he just grew up and he had brothers and they all did it and he just did it. And so, do you remember learning how to walk on your hands, or was it just kind of like a thing that gymnast kids do and you did?
I mean, from day one, you're kicking up to a handstand against the wall.
Yeah.
It's all part of that, that pre-strength, the basic tumbling that we do at the beginning of practice. It starts with just a handstand and you roll over the top, and then eventually you're taking a couple of steps here and there, and yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
it
So
starts when you're real young.
Yeah. So we're going to try to wrap things up here in just a second, and we're going to finish this episode out with just kind of 10 quick little questions here. So you can answer them as fast as you want. We're not timing you. Don't worry. This isn't 10 questions for time. But we're going to ask you some questions. Before we start that, do you have anything that you want to plug? You can maybe shout out to your gym, any members, anything else.
Personal training, maybe.
Personal training. Where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm working with CrossFit Kilo too. Doors are always open. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you come into the gym, I'll most likely be somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
Just ask for Ben Ketelsen.
CrossFit Kilo in Iowa City, Iowa.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right, so here we go. 10 closeout questions. Cody, you're up first.
Sure. All right. So I'm going to make this a two-parter. It wasn't originally written that way. Sorry, Ted. But what is your favorite healthy meal and what's your favorite not healthy meal?
Favorite healthy meal?
Subjectively. Of course.
Somewhat healthy.
We've been into a lot of good steak lately.
Yes.
We've got a good butcher around here that we've been getting a lot of local meats from, and so just a good solid grilled piece of meat and side of veggies is perfect.
What about your not
Least
so
favorite?
healthy? Yeah.
I love a good burger. Whenever I go out to a restaurant, I always like to test out how well they can make a burger.
Yeah.
That's the comparison.
I was recently gifted some prime steaks, and oh my goodness, like the different, like I love steaks. I've always loved steaks, but like once you start eating some prime steak, you're kind of like, wait, is this how it should always taste? Like it's kind of
Right.
blown away. All right. I wasn't necessarily going to do this, but follow-up question. Here you go. You have 3 options. You have to eliminate 2. You can never, ever, ever have again one of the 3. Ready? Tacos, sushi, or burgers.
Ooh, you have to eliminate one, never
You
have
have
it
to
again.
you have to eliminate 2 out of the 3.
2. Huh.
So you can only indulge in one of those the rest of your life. So what's your favorite out of the 3, I guess is what we're saying, yeah.
Probably say burgers,
Burgers.
but sushi is pretty versatile. You have a lot of options there.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably eliminate tacos.
No tacos.
No tacos. Oh man. And I could probably eliminate burgers.
Yeah. There's something about sushi. Once you like really start to like it, it's just like, I don't know. I'm with you. It'd be so hard to eliminate it. It'd be so hard to eliminate a burger, but I think you get that flavor from like a steak or something, you know.
Yeah,
Anyway, all right. Next up, what is something you wish you knew how to do?
Something I wish I knew how to do. Speak another language, I think. I never picked up languages very well. I took Spanish a little bit. But I think being like bi or trilingual would be awesome.
Anything come into mind in terms of like what you would want to learn?
Spanish for sure, a little bit better at that. And then possibly Japanese, just because it's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, myself and the listeners, of course, want to know a good movie recommendation. It can be current. It could be your all-time favorite.
Movie.
It's movie night tonight, so let me know.
If you're looking for a comedy, Ace Ventura is probably one of my favorite classic funny movies.
What a great answer! Oh my gosh,
it's really good. Recently watched that with my little boy, and he thought it was pretty fun.
That's good. That's awesome. All right, next up, would you rather have a dog as a pet or any other animal as a pet? You can only have one. A dog or the field, essentially, is the question. What's the best pet?
A dog.
Yeah.
A dog for sure. I've got a dog right now, and we're dog people.
How big is your dog? Cool. How big is he?
What's that?
How big is he?
Somewhere between 190 and 200.
Yeah. And I dog sat for you. Yeah, I've dog sat for Ben before, and taking him on walks. I can't remember what happened, but I remember like he started to run, and I wasn't ready or wanted to run, and I was real nervous that I was just about to get dragged across the yard.
Have you ever heard the Bill Burr comedy skit about walking a pit bull? Have you ever heard that? I don't remember all of it. I'm going to butcher it, but if you have a chance, look it up. It's pretty good. Essentially, he just says, he's like, every person in their life should feel what it feels like to walk down the sidewalk with a giant dog. It's like, it is the most respect you'll ever feel in your entire life. But anyway, I lost my train of thought on our questions. Where are we? All right, Cody,
I gotcha. If you were given enough wealth to retire tomorrow, what would you do with the rest of your life?
Spend more time at the gym. That's kind of a crappy answer, but that's what I like to do.
Yeah, that's good though. That's a good sign though, because it means that you're kind of trending towards what you would do anyway, and that's always probably a good feeling. Next up, favorite dessert.
Favorite dessert, ice cream. Yeah, any variation. Haynes here in town has a Monster Mash cookie.
That's a good one.
Ice cream that is fantastic.
I know exactly what we're talking about. My wife and I still talk about that ice cream store. We loved that ice cream store. Yeah, it's
so good.
Favorite superhero, and it can be like Marvel. It can be whatever you want. Obscure.
I like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's pretty cool. He's
spoken like a true gymnast. Spoken like a true gymnast.
Do you like the new ones? Do you like with Tom Holland, like more than like what was?
Yeah.
The older ones. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the best month out of the year?
October. That's my birthday month, and that's when Nolan, our firstborn, was
very cool
born.
All right, first concert you ever attended.
First concert. Shoot.
I'm gonna follow that up while you're thinking of what's the best concert you've ever attended.
Ooh, two very different questions.
Man, I have not really been to very many live concerts. I have no idea what my first one was.
Like school, like musical, like or elementary school, like sing along.
Yeah, I was in a couple when I was in elementary school. I used to be pretty good on the stage.
Yeah. You never fell off those high rise, those rise.
No. Yeah. One I remember was Lupe Fiasco. He came to Iowa, and he did a performance up by the Pentacrest, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I like Lupe Fiasco. Kick, push, man. All right, last
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Last question for Coach Ben. What is one health and wellness tip that you would just give advice towards? Like, what's one thing? It's one tip that somebody could take.
Stay consistent. Just do what you can do and keep doing it. Just stay consistent and try not to fall off. Those little things add up. It doesn't have to be huge, massive workouts or a drastic change in lifestyle, but as long as you're doing the little things and building towards something, you're gonna see the benefits.
All right, there you have it. Stay consistent. It's little things. Ben Ketelsen, thanks so much for jumping on with us. Cody and I will be right back with some cool down questions. All right, one more time, thanks to Ben for jumping on the show. Up next, we're going to get into our cool down questions. We've got a question queued up for you and ready to go. But before we dive into it, please take a second and maybe even pause this episode, rate, review, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. It helps us spread the word. It helps us continue to grow the show. We've got some cool things planned. Cody and I really enjoy doing this. We're only 4 episodes in, and we're looking to just continue to just do this. For us, it's been a great learning experience, and it's also been a good opportunity for us to just reach out to people that are like-minded and interested in the same things as us, and hopefully that's you, the listener, and hopefully we can continue to bring you some cool stuff. So thanks so much for tuning in. Let's get to those cool down questions. All right, here we go. Final segment of Practical Wellness Radio. We close out every show with some cool down questions. These are listener submitted questions. If you want us to answer one of your questions, you can just shoot us an email. Email is info@practicalwellnesscoach.com. Today's question comes from Sam. Sam is asking, what is more important, an AM routine or a PM routine when it relates to health and wellness? And admittedly, I'll start things off with saying this is something that I struggle with. But Cody, let's just I'm going to kick it to you, man. What are some things that you do right now as part of your morning routine and your evening routine?
Well, right now, and I think it's important to note that this is kind of an up and down thing. It's not static, but the goal, the attempt for at least the nighttime routine is to kind of have had eaten before 8, start to wind down from 8 to 8:30, whether that's just kind of relaxing with my girlfriends, maybe watching a TV show that we like to watch together, or maybe a part of a movie or something, whatever the case may be. While we're doing that, we tend to stretch on the floor. So we'll just make some space. We'll stretch out the hips, the hamstrings, nothing crazy, just some general stuff. She has some things that she likes to do. I have some things that I like to do. And that can last from, depending on maybe energy levels, maybe it's something super short, 5 minutes, maybe it's 10, sometimes maybe 15, right? And then after we're done with that and we've kind of wound down for the night, we'll try to kind of crack open a book and read in the living room just for fun. Obviously reading different books. We're not reading to each other. It's not story time or anything like that. But and then
you should FaceTime me in for story time.
Yeah, right. And then we're kind of into bed by 9. So, and that kind of leads us to the morning routine. And I think it's probably safe to say that these are very synergistic, right? If you have a poor nighttime routine, you're probably not going to be able to make that morning routine like you would want. So we're usually in bed by 9. She's maybe a little bit earlier than me. I might stay up a little longer to read. And then she gets up pretty early. She gets up at like 4:45, 4:50 to get a workout in. So she's up working out for about an hour or so from 5 to 6. I typically get up, and this is where maybe I lose a little bit on my morning routine, as maybe I'll sleep in a little bit longer, but I usually try to get up around between 5 and 5:30. And I kind of like to work in the morning. That's just me. So with my university job, I like to kind of just start grading papers and getting organized in that way. And then she comes in and she, at least lately, has been making us coffee, which I appreciate. And she's getting ready for work. I'm still kind of grading and doing that stuff. And then she's out the door, and then I make my breakfast and start coaching.
Yeah. So, first thing I hear and I think about when I hear that, I guess, is boom, discipline. Like you guys are doing a great job. Like I think it's no secret to anybody that probably knows Cody personally that this dude is disciplined and he's going to, set himself up for success. And I really, really liked the fact that in that like little spiel, you talked about how they are synergistic, I think is the term you used, and how they complement each other, right? People, if you have a better nighttime routine, you're probably gonna have a better morning routine, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And as I said, I am somebody who admittedly struggled with this, and has probably always struggled with this. And I can tell you, when you have two kids, if you were struggling before, you're definitely struggling even more now, because a lot of times when you go to bed at night and when you wake up in the morning has nothing to do with your decisions, right? It is a third party that is, waking you up or, allowing you to finally fall asleep because they finally fell asleep, right?
Outside of your control, right? And that's kind of the difference between you and me. I don't have that, right? So that makes it a lot easier for me to kind of do the things that I want to do as it relates to consistency.
For sure. But I think that it is important to note too that, like, let's say Cody decides to have kids someday, like he has the discipline already, and there are going to be probably some sacrifices needed to be made, but he will be able to still reap the benefits of having years of habits that will give him an advantage when it comes to setting up wellness habits, health habits. Yeah. But I also think something that is really, really important when we're talking about routines or goals or anything is one of the biggest things that will help me, and again, coming from somebody who's not so great at routines, is verbalize them. And I don't mean like talking to yourself in the mirror. I mean, like, I will say to my wife, like, hey, I need to get to bed early tonight, and just, help me do that. Whether that's yelling at me if I'm on my phone, which I shouldn't be, right? And
sure,
we don't always receive that feedback very well if we don't verbalize it. Like, even though I know maybe I want to fall asleep, but if my wife is like, what are you doing on your phone? I'll be like, whatever I want to be doing on my phone, Right. But if you just kind of use those things to kind of send out that little flyer that, hey, like, this is important to me to try to catch up on sleep. Exactly.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be, exactly. And so what's more important, or what do you want to focus on? I think I would just start small. Yeah. Whether it's one thing. Something that I've been trying to do for probably about the last month is I wake up in the morning, and whether you want to call it meditation or not, I don't know if it falls under that line of meditation, but I will take some deep breaths and I will focus on my breathing. And I think it really helps me start the day calm, start the day in a good headspace.
Yeah. I would call that meditation for sure.
If the kids allow for it. A lot of times I have the kids in the morning. We have a nanny that comes in the afternoons, but a lot of times I'll have the kids in the morning. My wife's up and early and gone to work. And I will, if my kids allow for it, I'll try to do some stretching. And there's something about being able to sit down and eat a good freaking breakfast. And it sounds so simple.
No, it's amazing. I'm more of a coffee. Like, I just like want to sit and like have my coffee and, grade some papers or do whatever, or even just like have some me time for like 10, 20 minutes if I have the opportunity, right? Depending on the day. I think that's so valuable, and that's just going to set you up for the day.
Yeah. And like I said, don't feel like you have to do everything at once. That's the same thing as somebody who's never worked out before and they want to go like run a marathon the next morning. That's just not going to happen. And it's not going to it's probably not even going to be healthy for you in a way, right? Because something else is going to sacrifice. So many people are like, oh, I want to wake up in the morning and I want to stretch or do yoga or pray or meditate or make a smoothie or do whatever. Like, just pick one thing you want to do and do it every single day. For the next 2 weeks.
Another one that you could use is when starting to develop an improved routine, and I would even say this too, is where do you start, morning or night? It's maybe dependent on the person. Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? Where do you have the most clarity and focus and even self-accountability? But if you want to add a task in, and hopefully it's maybe something small to start, to pair it with something that you're already doing. So like in the morning, like while you're making that coffee, and I used to do this, I have unfortunately kind of got out of my meditation routine, but in the past I would start my coffee and I would meditate the 5 or 10 minutes while that was kind of, brewing or whatever, if I was doing pour over a little bit different, but that's what I would do. I just pair that with that activity. I'm going to have my coffee. Great. I'm going to meditate as well. So that's another little strategy you can use to start to develop these habits and be consistent with them too. And I would say this, try to not use the weekend as an excuse to not do some of these things. Now, obviously live your life. Like, go have fun. I think that's important, right? Especially when we're thinking about holistic health. But, don't stay up till 1 a.m. just because it's Saturday, right? And that's something that Julie and I are really good about is like, tonight we're recording this on a Saturday. We're going to eat dinner at the same time we normally would, maybe a little bit earlier, just because we're not, as busy from, PM workouts or just general work week stuff. But we're going to probably go to bed at the same time. We're going to still read, we're still going to stretch, even though it's the weekend. And I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, I do like that. And, you said a couple things in there. There's a fitness coach out there. His name's John Welborn. Cody and I are both big fans of his. And he has this kind of like, he kind of lives in absolutes, which I think is catchy. It's not always real world, but there's a lot of truth to this. He always says, don't let all of your habits, good or bad, run your life, right? So for example, if it is your kid's birthday, but yet you're taking your diet really serious and everybody, let's say pre-pandemic, you're having a bunch of people over, whatever, and you're having cake, like don't be that asshole who isn't eating any cake. Like it's your kid's birthday. Like live in the moment, enjoy this. The kid's only might have his, it's his 6th birthday. I
think what he says is don't be weird.
Yeah, don't be weird. Yeah, just don't be weird. And
absolutely.
And I also like what you said, Cody, about whether you're a night owl or a morning person, don't feel bad about that. Just lean into it. No, hey, I'm a night owl, so if it's getting in the way of having a successful morning or a successful next day, maybe we need to address some things. But if you're a night owl and you're up and you're awake, instead of being on your phone or instead of maybe just watching TV, like Cody said, they use the TV as a wind down as they also stretch or as they also kind of whatever. So just use it as an opportunity to kind of grow and take advantage of just being awake when maybe other people are asleep.
Yeah. Know yourself and know what you need as an individual and where some of these things fall into place for you. Like what I do isn't going to work for everybody, right? Some people are like, there's no way I'm going to bed at 9, right? Or even like the college students that I teach, that like getting up at 5 a.m. like blows their minds. Even just the other day, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why are we late to a 12:30 class? Like, oh, like I need to, go to bed earlier. I'm thinking, okay, like
it's
11
12:30.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's like 3, 4 a.m. And it's like, I'm getting up then. But and my routine's not going to work for those people, right? At least in this moment of their life. And I think that's an important thing to remember. So just kind of figure it out and just make those small improvements
for sure
over time.
Yeah. So to recap, like Cody said, small improvements, start small. Don't feel like you have to do everything right away, both whether it's a morning routine or evening routine, but just try to do one thing for an extended period of time, 2 weeks, see how it goes, see how you feel, really assess it. You might not enjoy it the first 3 days. You might not enjoy it the first 10 days, but just give yourself time. If you know it's what's best for you. Yeah. Give yourself time, give it a chance. If you know it's going to hopefully make you feel better. And then, just lean into who you are, know who you are, and don't feel like if somebody else is doing this thing, you have to be doing that also. So Sam, thanks for the question. We are going to be signing off. I'm Cody. This is Ted. Thanks for listening to Practical Wellness Radio. Stay well. Take care.